everyone, and welcome to Randy's Roundtable. We are at the train shed at Union Station with a couple of the great Blues alumni, the Hall of Famer Bernie Federko. Good to see you.
Thank you, Randy.
And one of our all-time favorite enforcers, Reed Lowe. Losey, do you like that term? Is enforcer an okay term for a guy who used to fight a lot?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good term. We get goon a lot, and they make movies about it, and it's not quite that bad. But one thing I think that a lot of people don't understand is when you kind of fit into that role, you almost have to become a student of the game because you can't afford to be making mistakes on the ice and stuff like that. So you know your role, and Tony Twist is always famous for saying, you know, being an NHL tough guy is like going to school and knowing that there's the toughest guy in school at the end of the day is gonna want to take you down, but you have to get straight A's all the way through class. So there's some challenges that come along with it.
I wanted to ask you both, and we can start here, and I want to get into some stuff that's going to be a lot of fun with Bernie and Losey. But it used to be, back in the day, you had to beat the man to be the man, right? When there was a tough guy on the team, that's how you made the team, was by beating that guy. Who was your guy?
You know, my 3 years I played in the minors, it was Chaser and Tony Twist.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, so that was a good time. And then back in the day at training camp when I was playing in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was 3 or 4 other minor league tough guys they would bring in. I remember my first training camp in 97, I had 7 fights in 6 games. So it was like on like Donkey Kong.
And Bernie, you're a 100-point guy. So how important was the Losey, the enforcer, to you when you were playing?
Oh, they were always important, and I think that we always made sure that they knew that they were important. I mean, a team is a team. It doesn't matter if you're the scorer or the goalie or whatever it is. He said, you know your role, and if everybody plays their role to a T, then you become very successful as a team. So we had utmost respect for them. Obviously, they made our jobs easier too. If we didn't have that tough guy, and there's lots of teams that didn't have the guy, the enforcer, you want to call it, whatever you, and those are the teams that a lot of times suffered, especially in the playoffs. I think the playoffs were the most important because the referees usually put away the whistles, like we all know that, and then things got a lot more physical, and if you didn't have that presence on your team, and you were going to be in trouble. And I think that the game has changed. Obviously now it's not the same as it was back then, but I kind of like the old way a lot better because our enforcers enforce the game. We police the game ourselves. You know, guys need to send a point. They weren't afraid to drop the gloves, and the sticks didn't get up or anything like that. It's because there was always the fear that you might get beat up. So I think it's always been important in our game, and I wish that our game stayed a little bit more like that.
Yeah, number one, like Bernie said, Losey, the policing of the game by the players is better for the players. But the other part is, Gretzky gave a lot of credit for his career success to Marty McSorley, right? Because Gretzky didn't have to fear somebody coming after him like I think star player does these days.
Yeah, you look, Wayne Gretzky barely got body checked, and Sidney Crosby had 2 stints with concussion on the IR, and that's really where it's at. And you know, the disappointing part for me in all of it is I would have never made the NHL or had the opportunity to do what hockey's given me, everything in my life, right? A new home, a new country, and I would have never been there just on skill alone. I became a better hockey player as I moved along, but there's a kid out there somewhere that would do anything to have that role, and he's not going to get the opportunity to do it. Like, I played 123 games in the Western Hockey League and had 76 fights. If I had that today, I'd be kicked out of every league under the sun. And so they've changed the way that happens. And is that a little bit for the better? Yeah, but I think that there's a happy medium inside of this where the guys feel like there's a level of we can control the game ourselves because it's really not happening. Concussions are up, crackback hits are up. Really, it's not the fighting that's the issue, it's the hitting and the guys that aren't scared anymore. You know, Claude Lemieux was scared. He still did it, but he was scared, you know.
It's the issue because they've taken fighting out so you're not afraid to get beat up so you can do whatever you want, and that's the whole thing. But you know, with what you said now, it's true, but it's now the little guy that maybe couldn't play 20 years ago, the guy that was too small or wasn't physical enough, now he gets a chance to play, and he's the skill guy. So, I mean, the game has changed so much, and I don't know, some people like the old game, some like the new game, so I'd like to see a little bit of both in there, and I'd like to see a hybrid of both, and I think that the game is always so cyclical, Randy, and I know that once somebody starts getting a couple of big guys in, and then the game says, okay, well now, because they got some big guys, we better get some big guys, and then it changes, and all of a sudden the little guys get kind of pushed out, and then all of a sudden we get more tough guys that come in. So I think the game is always going to be cyclical. I think the fans still like the physical part of the game, and I hope they never take that out.
Nobody ever leaves for the concession stand when a fight's going on, right?
In fact, they run back from the concession stand to watch the fight.
So, and I wasn't a fighter, but I really respected the fact that if I had to fight, and I didn't fight that often, but you can only get pushed so far, and then at least you settle it for yourself, or you have somebody that, hey, don't do that. Semenko, as you said, McSorley, don't touch Gretzky. Everybody knew that. But I mean, Wayne, I think, was in such a different class that, I mean, when you end up with 2,000 points in your career, it's like crazy. I mean, no one's going to really go after him at all. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Isn't it amazing, though, that you're at a place in time, you get drafted by St. Louis, you get drafted by St. Louis, you both get traded to rivals, you both wind up coming back to St. Louis. What was it, Bernie, you start with this, about St. Louis that drew you back here to become part of the Blues alumni and to be doing what you're doing?
Well, this was home. I mean, I came here when I was 20 years old. So, I mean, I was here for 14 years before I went to Detroit. So, I mean, this was home. I mean, you know, my wife and I got married in 1978, so this was home. We had our 3 sons were all born here at St. John's. So going to Detroit, I mean, when I went there, obviously I was very disappointed, but it was an opportunity for me because Jacques Demers was the coach there. He was the one that brought me in, and the conversations that he had with me, he wanted me to be part of his team. He thought he was going to be general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, and he wanted me to be part of his crew going forward. Well, that didn't work out. After a year, he got fired. So I was at the end of the line there. So my wife and I talked and said, why wouldn't we go back to where is home for us? I mean, it was. I mean, we knew everything about St. Louis. We loved the people. We had sold our house, but we had loved everything about our neighborhood, about everybody that we'd ever met here. And St. Louis is centrally located. We love the weather as opposed to what we grew up in Saskatchewan. The weather's great here. I mean, you can get, on a car and you can be in Florida, and in a few hours you can get on a plane. I mean, we could go anywhere from St. Louis. So we had still a lot of friends. So this was opportunities that I needed to work too. So this was a place that I knew that I could find the opportunity to get a job. And that's why we came back here.
How about you, Reed?
I think probably first and foremost, I married a St. Louis girl, and I had my kids were all born here as well. But for me, most importantly, it was the alumni, really, and the way that the fans still treat us to this day. I've been retired now for 14 years, and I still have people come up in Schnucks with a can of tomato soup and ask me to sign it. You know what I mean? Like, and kind of once you've earned your stripes in this town, and I tell this to people all the time, like, if you're an outsider coming into St. Louis, it's not the easiest town to crack into if you don't, right? And so when you earn your blood, sweat, and tears on the ice or on the baseball field or football stadium or whatever it is to a St. Louis fan, they just endear you for the rest of your life. And that's such an amazing feeling to have such a great community and to be able to be a part of it. And our Blues alumni does a ton of stuff in the community as well. So it was just, I knew as soon as I came to St. Louis, my very first training camp, that this is going to be my new home. And everybody says, well, why didn't you go back to Saskatchewan? I'm like, minus 50 degrees for 8 months of the year? I don't think so. I grew up in it and it was there. I didn't know any better. But once I learned about knowing better, I quickly changed my mind.
Exactly. Lives change. The kids loved it here. I mean, we loved everything about St. Louis, and we still do. I mean, we're still here. And thankfully, our kids are still in town too as well. So St. Louis has got everything that we love about it.
And I know both of you were so thrilled a couple of years ago when the Blues won the Cup, and they really embraced the alumni being a part of that run. That was really cool.
It really was. I mean, obviously, every one of us that ever played for the St. Louis Blues, I mean, our goal was to win the Stanley Cup. And unfortunately, as players, when we were playing for the team, it didn't happen. So you still feel that you're always, once you're a member of any team, you're still going to be there for a lifetime. And you hope, like everybody else. I mean, I've talked to so many fans over the years that the one moment that they wanted in their lives before they passed on was to see the Blues win a Stanley Cup. And when that came true, I think that there's not one of the alumni was not more excited or as excited as any fan, because we're now fans. I mean, we're not players anymore. We played the game, and we that jersey that we wore, that blue note that we wore, that never hit the ground. I mean, we take pride in that, and to see that these guys now are still, even though they're way past us now and way younger than we are, they're still part of us, and we're all part of the same team, and that's what I think was so special for us. But I think that watching the fans' reaction, Randy, was much more exciting for me than anything else, because I saw people that have been season ticket holders since 1967 crying and saying, wow, this is the greatest moment in my life. So I think those were the special times that we had.
One of the really cool things that I've noticed over the last few years, when we had the All-Star game here in 2017, all of the chapter presidents from the other alumni were invited here. They got to see our locker room at Centene. They got to see a suite that we have that the Blues give us. And really, Tom Stillman and the management team they're the ones that want us to be a part of it and understand that we can help them drive hockey, right? We're all out coaching our kids and other people's kids and helping build new hockey, not only hockey players, but hockey fans, right? Because we've got to keep this thing going. We want to make sure that St. Louis stays alive. And I think that, their involvement with us and their want for us to make sure that we had the trucks and the parade and that we were a part of that was really important. And I think made us all feel really special.
One last thing before we wrap up, and I wanted to save this for last because it is so important. And Bernie, you mentioned how influential Bark was to you, and Bobby Plager was influential for all of us. I think Bobby Plager might have taught me more hockey than anybody else. So we obviously lost him last spring. Your favorite Bobby Plager memory?
Oh, I mean, I just being around Bobby. I mean, Bobby, I don't have just one memory. I have so many memories that's what really hurts. I mean, it was so hard to go to the rink after Bobby was gone because we missed the whole year because of COVID and stuff. I had lunch with him every game before the game. Before I went up to work, we met in the club and we had lunch and talked about all kinds of different things. So not seeing the whole time and then knowing now that I'm not going to see him again. But Bobby always had a story, always had a joke, always had something on his phone. As we keep saying, that phone, if someone's got that phone, it's worth millions of dollars, just the stuff that he's got on the phone. But I mean, Bobby always had a practical joke. He always had a smile. He always had something great to say. He was nervous about the games. He was the St. Louis Blues. I mean, he's that guy that wore the blue note on his heart all the time, and he was one of the guys that taught so many people about the game of hockey. And I learned so much from him just watching how he interacted with people, and that's just Bobby. Bobby is always going to be my fondest memory.
Bobby paved the way for all of us in St. Louis. There's a legacy to hold up as a St. Louis Blues alumni, and it starts with Bobby Plager for me because of the way that he interacted with the fans and how much they were endeared to him. And everybody followed Bobby. Like everybody loves Bobby. Bobby changed people's days. Bobby made days brighter, right? And now, Facebook is a very, very negative world right now. But when Bobby passed away that next day, my thread had nothing but Bobby Plager, and it was nothing but love. And it was like, you know what? That guy had so much love for this world that he took Facebook off the negative road for one day. And one thing I loved about him while I was a player was when he could see, his emotional intelligence was so good that he could see when you were down. And he would come over to me and he wouldn't be talking to me about nothing but stuff that was gonna make me laugh and try and cheer me up without trying to critique me, because he knew that I was already hard on myself and everybody else that was going on when things weren't going right. And that's what made Bobby special. And we went to Slovakia for the Pavel Dimitra thing. He was with us, Bernie was with us. We had an absolute unbelievable time. Bobby always came with us when we do our fantasy camps and our alumni exhibition games that we play with other teams. He's always there coaching us, and he's an absolutely unbelievable human, and we all miss him.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys heard the same things just over and over. In the last 2 minutes, chip it out off the glass. Let the clock be your coach. Just such simple things.
Simple, that's the word, Randy. Simple.
And it made you understand hockey, and I'm sure it made you play better hockey too when you heard those things.
It is, but that's how hard the game is, though, because those little simple things, when the crunch time is on, are very difficult to do because someone's really in your face. And that's the thing that I'm very fortunate of, because I'm part of the broadcast still, to understand, to try to pass that on to the people that are watching, that those little simple things, a lot of times, yes, it's a simple thing to do, but it's really hard to remember to do that when someone's right on top of you. So the little things, though, when you do those little simple things the best, the teams that do the best, the teams that win.
We're going to be back here at the train shed at some point. Look at all of this. This train shed is unbelievable. Hey, thanks for joining Randy's Roundtable. Great to have you with us. And you got to stop by the train shed. And of course, as always, thanks to the Blues alumni. Gentlemen, we really appreciate your time.
Cheers, Randy.
Cheers.
We'll try it out now.
Reed Lowe, the Hall of Famer Bernie Federko, Randy Carricker. We'll see you next time.